all systems are down. We got you on phone, so thank you very much. I do want to get into the talk about parasites, but you also mentioned something to me that your system, Zoom system and Skype was down, and my producer's was as well. And you said, yeah, it's probably the beginning of the 10 days of darkness. What is that for people who don't know?
Well, I was kind of joking, but maybe not. That
I know, right?
That's been the Q. The Q drops have been talked about that a long time ago, and it's been this idea that at some point, it's part of the Restore the Republic. Actually, at some point, that they're going to have to show us what's been going on in such a graphic way that people will demand that we reform what's happened, that we don't live under the corporate structure we're under right now, and that we go back to the Republic. And at that point, the military steps in. That's the discussion. And I don't, and the idea is that it takes over. You've heard the emergency broadcast system is going to be taken over. Well, that's what they're talking about. I mean, that's one of the explanations. That's one of the, things people are looking at. So I don't think everything's going to be completely shut down, but this was a little weird that we couldn't get connected by Skype, which I've used for literally years, 5 years, whatever COVID started, and Zoom. And Zoom won't even... Skype, you can go to the Skype, but it won't connect to people. Zoom, you can't even go to their site right now. I mean, it just says that DNS doesn't work right now or whatever. It's on their end. It's not us.
Well, it's not difficult to connect the dots here, and I don't want to take too much time about this because the heart of what I really wanted to talk to you about is parasites and cancer. You're the expert on that. How are they connected?
Well, so I've been going back in time because, quite frankly, modern medicine literature, we're not looking at what we knew when. And it turns out that in 1903, this is from an AMA journal, an AMA publication, American Medical Association publication, and one of the bigwigs in the AMA was giving a speech, and it was recorded. And he said, this whole debate about cancer causing parasites, that's over. We know we know parasites cause cancer. I said it wrong backwards. We know parasites cause cancer. The only debate should be, is it all cancers or just some of the cancers? Now, that's in 1903. Now, later, we had very interesting, in 1927, Dr. Fibiger, who was a cytopathologist in Copenhagen, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for showing that these particular nematodes cause cancer, and they cause stomach cancer in animals. And he was able to, and he also noted, interesting in those days, they didn't have a veterinary department of the university to supply rats and mice for studies. So he had to purchase rats from rat catchers. And he would notice that he could instill these parasites into some of these groups of rats, and they would all get stomach cancer. But in other groups, none of them would. And he finally asked the rat catcher, what's the difference? These are genetically the same animals. What's the difference? Turned out the only ones that would get cancer are the ones that they caught in a sugar factory. So so we learned something right there. I mean, what have we been exposed to? So a high carb diet. Well, the third thing is in 1916 there were two. And I think it was Kawai was one of the names, I think, or Kasai and Kawasaki or something like that. It's two Japanese researchers, and they're published in a 1919 publication on Journal of Parasitology. And they showed that animals that forage, like dogs, cats, monkeys, eat different type of diets, that they tend to have, if you look in their stomachs, you will see these spirochetal parasites in their stomachs, but it doesn't make them sick. It doesn't seem to make them sick. So then they experimented on them in the lab where they could instill these parasites into the animals. They knew they didn't have them before. They would instill them, and again, they'd watch them. And if the animal was healthy, nothing happened. But if they put the parasite into their stomachs, and then a couple of days later they gave them a vaccine, then the parasite would become active, take them over, and they would die sooner than expected. And
how long ago was that? How long ago was that?
1916. 1916. 1916, over 100 years ago.
Why aren't they talking about this?
And that is okay, and that is a very good question. The other thing is, and I'll just say why I think it is. In 1920s, we had magnification microscopes done by Royal Rife, who actually did these microscopes. He made them to look at parasites. They were 15,500 magnification, and you could see intracellular parasites. You could see all sorts of stuff in beautiful detail. We don't have that. An electron microscopy is not what people think it is. That's dead, very damaged tissue you're looking at. It's not live things. So he could look at live parasites and follow them and know what was going on. Why can't we? And when I put all this together, my answer is this is a very long-term bioweapons program against humanity. I can't come up, in 1948 and in 1951, there were two bioweapons, biowarfare defense intelligence reports that came out. And this isn't word for word, but generally what they said was, look, guns and bombs, you're being attacked. It's very obvious. But bioweapons can be so subtle that people just think it's a natural disease.